Ziyanda Ngobo, in conversation with Mzwanele Manyi, the spokesperson of the Jacob Zuma Foundation. Ziyanda, confirmation at this stage from Zuma's side, is he going to appeal?
Well, it sounds like it from what Advocate Tabadi Masuku was saying, that if they happen to bring an interlocutory application between now and April, can Mr. Zuma please be excused from those proceedings? Judge Piet Koen saying, well, let's deal with this on an ad hoc basis. He cannot give a blanket yes or no response to that particular question. But I want to actually, let's just speak to Mzwanele Manyi of the Jacob Zuma Foundation. Earlier on when we spoke to you for a short bit, you said that you're not surprised Mr. Zuma's being stabbed in the back again. Where's the evidence to substantiate this? Because this is clearly similar to what happened with the permanent stay of prosecution, where the reasons that Judge Piet Koen gave are similar to that of the previous judges, that there simply is not enough evidence, and let the trial begin.
This judgment is one of the most irrational pronouncements I've ever heard on two counts. The first thing is that the judge makes reference to the order that he had given on paragraph 3 on the initial order. In that order, the judge had said a few things. He had said on that paragraph 3 that the state is allowed to appoint a team to examine President Zuma, and then also that the medical doctor of President Zuma is also allowed to come and give oral evidence. But he gave a condition at the end of that sentence, if necessary. Now today he makes a U-turn. He forgets that he had said if necessary. He now today says, I never set any conditions. I mean, what is this? How do you say if necessary? And then today you turn around and you say it was unconditional. How can a judge make such a U-turn? That's the first thing. The second thing, when you deal with the title to prosecute, that section 106 that they're talking about there, if you read that thing, it's got a far wider meaning, as it were. The judge decides that no, this title to prosecute, you must not read too wide a definition. And then he makes a very appalling statement. He says if that wide definition was to be the name of the game, basically, no prosecutor will be able to prosecute. So in other words, this judge is admitting to mediocrity. This judge is saying, prosecutors, all you have to do is to have an LLB degree and nothing about your conduct. The fact that as we speak here and now, on the 11th of April, we're actually faced with a situation where His Excellency President Zuma would be prosecuted by a man facing criminal charges.
Okay, but Mr. Manyi, I have to jump in there.
It's not an issue for this judge, yet the point was made even on the 22nd of September that we have these kinds of issues. Now the judge decides to just cleanse all of that and wants to present us a clean Billy Downer when the facts on the table are to the contrary. So indeed, we're not happy with this.
But Mr. Manyi, the judge did also say that it may not necessarily, according to Supreme Court of Appeal ruling, which he says is also binding on him, that it may not necessarily be about the impartiality or independence of the prosecutor, but it's an actual fact about whether or not Mr. Zuma would receive a fair trial. And on that basis, this special plea failed to prove that Section 33 of Mr. Zuma's rights would actually be infringed. What's your reaction to that?
Let me give you a short sentence. I mean, this judge takes that SA ruling was only a civil proceeding and so on. This is a criminal case. Different standard applies. So therefore, to come and tell us here about things that have happened in a civil situation when we're dealing with a criminal matter is something different. So indeed, we don't accept that. But dealing with a criminal case here, and the stringentness of the criminality, the stringentness of the criminal procedure must apply. If you have to be prosecuted, you can't be prosecuted by somebody with dirty hands. You can't be prosecuted with somebody that has got all kinds of allegations that are substantiated in affidavit, even by people that come from the NPA. So to have a situation like that, and to have a judge that's just going to turn a blind eye into all of this, is a travesty of justice. cannot be acceptable at any standard. So today what we've seen rule of law being trampled upon by a court itself. This cannot be. So the foundation is very clear on this matter. We are going to advise President Zuma to appeal this irrationality that has just transpired here today. It cannot be accepted. We don't hear when we started. I did explain that we are going to appeal because, well, obviously, Judge, the lawyers are going to come back with the detail and all of that. But at the face of the summary of the judgment, there's a travesty of justice. I've said, firstly, that the judge has made a U-turn. He put a condition on paragraph 3 of his own order. Today he has forgotten that. He says, I've made no conditions. So that's a problem. Secondly, this judge has decided to narrow the issue of title to prosecute to basically a qualification, and when actually the whole thing is about the conduct of a person, broader than just a qualification. You can't just reduce it to, you've got an LLB, and you can't make a statement and say, if we were to use the wider judgment, the wider definition, therefore no one will be able to prosecute. So this judge is admitting that we must have a whole range of prosecutors that have got the waywardness as part of their makeup, but he's saying that must be acceptable. We cannot have that.
Mr. Manyi, I'm a bit confused. Mr. Zuma has always said he wants to have his day in court. He's being given that opportunity on the 11th of April. Why not just continue with the trial and raise the issues within the trial, the issues that you're facing? Because this is a trial within a trial. Why not just wait for the trial to begin and lead your evidence during the trial?
But you must understand issues. There are two issues. On the trial itself, we'll be dealing with the actual transactions that are allegedly corrupt and what have you. That's the substance of that part of things. Here, we're clearing the way. Here, we just want to make sure that the governance of the whole system is clean. What we have here is a poisoned tree, and we're expected now to accept the fruit of a poisoned tree. So what we're trying to point out in this particular plea application is that what we have here is a poisoned tree. We can't have dirty hands dealing with this matter, and this is what we're trying to point out today.